Welcome to Miles of Books, a book-centric show to take along on your run from another mother runner and feisty. I'm your host, Sarah Bowen Shea, and I'm joined by Coach Liz Waterstraat to talk about a freshly published nonfiction book. Hiya, Liz.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. Fresh off a swim. I got the goggle marks, the snorkel line, so I put on my pretty face for everyone.
Excellent. All right. Well, the book you're bringing us today is new on the shelf, as I mentioned. It was published earlier this year. It's called Mattering: The Secret to a Life of Deep Connection and Purpose by Jennifer Breheny Wallace. I might be not saying her middle name right. And I see that it hits right at your sweet spot, 231 pages. So, Liz, introduce us to the author and give us an overview of this book.
Well, before you do that, can we
please.
just talk about the book cover?
Oh,
Isn't
they're
it a pretty book cover? Never choose a book by the cover, but if a book has a nice cover, you should probably take a look. So,
Particularly, have to say nonfiction books. I mean, you know, when Ellison and I talk about fiction, it's like, oh, so pretty,
Yeah.
so pretty. So this is it's real banner that a nonfiction is
simple
pretty.
little piece of fruit. It's my sweet spot, 231 pages, and a rarity nowadays. There aren't like 100 appendices after those 231 pages. So kudos to you, Wallace. You nailed it. So Jennifer Breheny Wallace, she's a journalist, she's a researcher. Her work centers on achievement culture and mental health, and she's written in that space before. Her reporting, it draws heavily from interviews. She pulls into psychological research and also real-world case studies. And she's particularly interested in high-performing environments, which is right up my alley. And her work has appeared everywhere. Like I said, she's a published author already, but she's also had some of her work in the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
So this book is entitled Mattering, and it focuses on a concept that sits actually directly underneath performance and achievement and even motivation, and that is the human need to feel valued and contribute meaningfully. And she argues that much of what we currently define as success is actually incomplete, and in some cases, it undermines our well-being. So I didn't think I would like this book, but I got to tell you, I really liked this book, and not because I think it's an amazing piece of nonfiction literature. I just think the core idea, it does get a little bit redundant, and she heavily relies on anecdotes, but this book is different. It's a fresh concept. She brings in new research. She has well-styled anecdotes. I think she's really good at storytelling, and it was a very quick read.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so what's the big idea behind this book? And rate it on a woo-woo scale from 1 to 10? Because that subtitle, The Secret to a Life of Deep Connection and Purpose, can skew kind of peace, love, and understanding.
Oh,
to
it's
me.
so funny because when I read that, we have notes behind the scenes. When I read that, I thought you wanted it on a scale of woohoo, like woohoo.
Patchouli and
This would be
chimes.
just a woo. I don't know if it would be a woohoo for everyone. It is not woo-woo at all. It's very practical,
Oh.
and a lot of the stories I think people would definitely relate to. But the central idea of this book is that people thrive not when they achieve more, but when they feel like they matter. And what Wallace does is she builds upon the research of Gordon Flett. He was a clinical psychologist who actually studied mattering. And so she builds on his foundational definition of mattering and applies it to modern culture and achievement and well-being.
Can I just
Sure.
interrupt for a second? I find the word mattering a very unusual
Right.
word. And so for people who are only listening, the word we're saying is mattering.
Yeah. So you matter. And you're right. It's a different word. Like, I think we're all familiar with grit and perfectionism. And even Adam Grant a few years ago brought up languishing. So we're used to all of these psychological concepts. But mattering is something that really hasn't been brought to the forefront. And I think Wallace did a great job at doing that. And how she defined mattering was it's two things. It's feeling valued. So how you signal your worth, how you feel noticed, how you feel seen and understood, and also adding value. So that sense of how do I contribute to others and make a difference beyond myself. And she says that the full experience of mattering, it actually requires both. So there needs to be that internal affirmation of I am valued and the external impact of I contribute. And if you contribute, but you don't feel valued, which I was thinking about this today. Do you remember parenting young kids? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm sure very much like you, I had 3 kids under 6, and you very much are contributing every day to their daily living, but you don't always feel valued. Like you keep putting in the deposits, sensing that one day, like the other day, my 15-year-old said something and I thought, oh my gosh, he's been listening. We've done our job. So to me, that is this, sense of you're contributing but don't feel value. And then on the other side, you can feel valued, but you don't feel like you're doing anything. You're not contributing. And I think this is a situation that a lot of older people feel like they're in. Like I think ahead, I think to my mom, she's approaching 80. And if she wasn't actively involved in my kids' lives, I think she would feel like she's valuable, but she's just not contributing anywhere that has impact.
So which side do you think is harder to achieve in real life, feeling valued or adding value?
That's a great question. I think feeling valued, because I think our perception of value just can be so variable depending on what's going on in our life and how we're seeing the world and maybe even what's going on in the world. And so I think it's that side of the equation that would be tougher to bring it to balance. What about you?
I feeling valued and seen is just super. This will sound idiotic. It's just super important to me, and that I find working hard is something I personally think all women work hard.
Yeah.
But I think I am like a lot of other women who sometimes don't feel valued or seen. And our former marketing director and a former co-host of mine on Another Mother Runner, Katie Snevice, she would always laugh when we'd get on a call with a potential partner and they would talk very knowledgeably about something Another Mother Runner did with our community, whether it was, I don't know, some sort of blog series or, I don't know, just what Another Mother Runner can mean in women's lives. And she was always like, oh, Sarah's just eating this up, because when people would like really see what we were doing and understanding it at a really deeper level, other than, yeah, they put out podcasts, and she's always like, Sarah, like I was ready to like give them the farm because they like acknowledge what we were doing. Yeah. So, and also, I'm sorry, but as a mother, as you pointed out, I know my kids love me, but do they really, I don't know, do they really understand what all is involved?
I don't think you really do until you're on the second half of your life and you're in that same situation and you find yourself thinking, my parents weren't crazy. They were just doing the best they can with what they had because everything around them was crazy.
I sometimes literally say out loud to my mother, who is no longer with us, to be like, oh, Mom, I get it.
Yeah.
She used to always say, I don't mind cooking dinner. It's deciding what to cook for dinner that is the chore. And I was like, what are you talking about? And now I'm like, oh, Mom, I get it. I get it. And I wish I'd been able to tell her that. It's all right. I will get off the therapy couch because, one, it's time for a short sponsor break. So please support these brands. Make them feel seen. Know that they're adding value to our podcast. I joke, but it's true. Our conversation will continue shortly. Okay, how about we get back to the book? Yeah, so let's go back. What does mattering mean? Like, what's at the core there?
Sure, we can dig into it. So it's a foundational need, and I think it's best described by this quote from the book. Mattering is like gravity. It's unseen, but essential. It holds us in place. It steadies us. When we feel that we matter, we feel anchored. When it's missing, we feel adrift, which is, that is being human right there, isn't it? And as you can imagine, that sense of mattering is linked to belonging, identity formation, and mental health as well. So, what Wallace says is before you focus on what you're doing or how you're doing, really think about whether you feel valued and connected to get to that core of mattering.
Okay, I understand that the author spent some time on something called impact. So tease that apart a bit, please.
So she talks about how people feel they matter when they see how they impact others. And the quote I pulled from the book was, mattering grows when we can see the difference that we make. And so she pulled in some research that contribution-based motivation increases engagement and persistence. So when you feel like you're making a difference, you're more likely to be engaged, involved, you're more likely to persist in grit. So she suggested to regularly identify how your actions affect others. And one thing that she suggested I really like, I do this based on the suggestion of a business coach to keep an impact file. And so an impact file is where you keep track of all of the records of when people just share what impact you had. And of course, as a business owner, you could use this for marketing and testimonials. But honestly, what the business coach said to me was just go back into that file every now and then, especially when you're having a rough day, and just read through it to ground yourself and to really reconnect to the difference that you're making. Because as we get caught up in the day-to-day and the stressors and, people pushing and pulling us in different directions, I think it's important for us to remember, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is, how what I'm doing reaches other people. So do you keep any sort of impact file, Sarah?
Hold on. I'm going to pause before I answer that question, because an impact file, are we talking that this is like emails that you file in a thing, or is this, a paper journal? Like is this notes in your phone? What is this?
I have a folder in my email inbox, and anytime someone sends me an email or a note or even a text, I will screenshot a text, or if it's something in their race report that I think just really highlights the value of the work we've done together, I will put it in there. And every once in a while I go back to it, and it's just a really nice record too of like all of the reach that you've had over the years.
And is it titled impact, like the same way that I have folders that are like travel or, kids?
No, it had it says something like coaching notes, which my folders, my organization is like my own language. Do you feel like if someone stumbled upon your inbox, they would be like, what is going on in there? None of this lines up.
I just got to start a whole new system because I did get an email with Feisty. And so I'm like, okay, this is it. I have to do a good job because, this is a blank canvas.
Yes. Before it completely devolves into the organization of your mind, which I'm guessing is not totally organized all the time because you're human.
Not totally organized. No. Okay, so I will answer your question. I do not keep an impact file, but frequent listeners of the podcast will know that the written word, particularly notes and cards, mean a lot to me. And so when people have sent me over the years of another mother runner, in part because our business address is my home address, so they knew how to reach me. So people would send me, notes and cards that said things like that. And so I do not have them all in one place. And sometimes I like running into them. Sometimes they will be a bookmark, or they'll be I just cleaned out my desk. Oh, that's so cute. Look at that.
This is my, I guess, real life impact file of all the little cards and stuff people would send me. And you might have an appearance in here too.
I was about to say, I bet there's a few from me in there. So it's fine. So I just also cleaned out my desk somewhat. And then I found, instead of like taking all the notes that I've gotten over the years, I was like, okay, these are in the second on the one on the left, second down, I'm going to keep all those there. And then there's some over here, and just, so I have them. And I envision one day, in my retirement years, I'm going to go through them all and just read them again. And so when I cleaned out my desk, I read a lot of them, and it really made an impact on me. So let's talk about the idea of a corner man, Liz.
Okay. Or a corner woman, right? Yeah.
Yes, a corner person.
So everyone needs a corner person. At least one person who consistently reinforces their value. I think this person cannot be your parent either.
Oh, shoot, because I was just thinking, I am so John's corner man.
Okay, yeah, your son.
They're my sons.
Well, I think that's kind of our job as moms, but the corner person reminds everyone that they matter. And the reason why this is important is because strong support systems increase our resilience and our well-being. Nothing shocking there. So you really want to take time just to identify and also maintain those relationships where you feel valued and unconditionally, which I think nowadays is the challenge because we had no shortage of relationships or connections, but I think maintaining them has actually become harder than ever. Maintaining in the sense of putting in the time. I think it's really easy to keep a lot of those relationships very superficial, but to actually put in the time and to give someone your full attention and to maybe make time to go and see them, I think that's getting harder and harder.
Well, when you say all that, my best friend Chocolate immediately springs to mind. I sometimes we've been friends since we met on the day actually of the Boston Marathon. It was the same day that the Waco tragedy started out, and those were on the same day. And so the early 90s. And yeah, she lives on the opposite side of the country, and we have texts, we send audio messages, we handwrite letters, we see each other several times a year, and she definitely is the one who consistently makes me feel like I matter.
That's very special.
Yeah. Do you have somebody like that in your life, Liz?
Well, I do. But really this whole topic of being a corner person made me think about just being a coach or having a coach, or being a coach. And I really like this quote that Wallace included in her book. And it was, when we have people in our lives who are invested in our growth, we're more likely to feel like we matter. So ego extension is this idea of feeling like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. And it creates a bond of accountability. We want to make someone proud because they're invested in us and they care. And when we lack those people in our lives who express a vested interest in us, we can lose our sense of possibility. And I really like that because, as a coach and as someone who has a coach, it's not just you out there performing for you. I feel like you're also performing with your coach, for your coach, and you know that they're as invested in the outcome as you are, and they care. And if it goes well, they're your biggest fan. And if it doesn't go well, they're still your biggest fan, and they still care, and they still instill that sense of possibility in you.
Yeah, one of the notes that I found in my desk as I was cleaning it out was from my coach in, that was 2014, Bree Bamer, when I qualified for Boston for a second time. And just, it brought tears to my eyes to read it all these years later again. So, yeah. All right. So if you have only one takeaway from this book, what would it be?
I'm going to give you 3 takeaways. Okay. So,
one schmun.
Achievement is not what creates a sense of worth. It's feeling valued and knowing you contribute. And it's also important to understand that you can succeed and still feel insignificant. You can struggle and still feel deeply valued. And the difference is whether you matter. So it's really important to identify where and how you matter. And then success doesn't determine whether you matter. Mattering determines whether success feels meaningful.
Wow. So it sounds like this book was a real home run for you.
It was. And can I share, I think, the most powerful story that was in the book? It was really interesting.
Yeah,
so first, I think this book would be great for parents, caregivers, teachers, medical staff, and emergency services. And it brought up something that I never really thought about. She brought up this firefighting chief out in North Carolina about how he was so concerned because his firefighters were struggling with suicide and burnout and just poor mental health. And you would think like firefighting, like that's an amazing job and you're doing like life-saving heroic things. But the problem was the firefighters would be the first on the scene and they would give their life-saving service, and then the EMS would come in and they would take it from there. And so the firefighters never had this sense of closure or knowing what impact they had. And so that ambiguity was really disconcerting and destabilizing for them. And so it impacted their mental health. So they set up this system where the firefighters would be able to learn what the outcome was of the person they helped or get an update on them. And there's just a great example of you can be doing something really important, but not really understanding if you matter. So make sure you put those guardrails in place to get that feedback and that confirmation of what you're doing matters and is significant and you are really important.
That reminds me of when the kids were in public school and so in grade school and such, that there would be teacher appreciation week at school, or I guess now probably staff appreciation week. But it goes to what you're saying, that we can see what teachers mean in the lives of our offspring, but for them to hear it and to be explicit. I think that's part of it, is just the importance of being explicit. And so, harkening back to my bestie, sometimes we'll be just doing, walking to her favorite coffee place, and I'll just be enjoying it so much. And instead of just thinking it, I'll say, I just love spending time with you, and I'm having such a good time being here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, don't let me get more maudlin. So, maudlin matters.
Wow. There's a word I haven't heard with high school. That was in 30 days to, being of a great nonfiction book, that was in 30 days to build a better vocabulary. Have you seen that book?
Oh my goodness. Just lost Liz there. Okay. So, never find out what the word maudlin means to Liz. Just keep you hanging. Well, thanks for listening. If you're pleased that we're back, we'd love if you could spread the word either by telling friends on social or leaving us a review wherever you listen. Be explicit in your love of us. Miles of Books is a production of Another Mother Runner and Feisty Media. For more on Feisty and our other podcasts, events, workshops, and Feisty Fest, visit feisty.co. That's feisty.co.